Hello everybody, welcome to AB Florida Gardening. We garden in Florida in a zone 9B, and I'm taking you on a little excursion today. You might think this has nothing to do with gardening, but it does. Let me go ahead and show you where we are. Yep, we are getting fabric. I'm such a sucker for fall decoration. It was so hard not to get distracted by all the pumpkins and Halloween decoration. I made it to the felt section. The lower quality felt was 30% off, and I had a coupon for anything full price. And this high quality felt was not reduced, so I could use the coupon. It's nice and thick, and I was quite torn between doing black or doing gray. I ended up going with the gray, and you'll see why later. I didn't even know how many different qualities of felt there were. Well, we're going with the sturdiest I could find, and if you haven't guessed it already, I'll let you in on the secret. We're going to make a planter out of felt. I had them cut me 1.5 yards, and it ended up being about $16 minus the discount, so it came out I think to about $10. So I'm back home and have everything set up. My sewing machine is set up. You don't need a sewing machine. Obviously having one will make this project a whole lot faster. I set up the fabric. I folded it in thirds. That gives me a line where I need to cut, and we're not sewing a dress here, so don't worry, you don't have to be extremely precise. Now that I'm finished with the first cut, I just flip it over and make the cut at the bottom edge. And that way I have 3 parts. Next, I folded the bottom portion of the fabric. I left about a 2-inch space at the top. And now you watch me fold it into smaller sections to kind of give me an idea of how big I'm going to make each pocket. You see, I'm not extremely precise here. When I know about where I want to put the seam, I will pin it down with my little needles, just so that the fabric will stay in place while I sew. Now that I'm done placing all the needles, I'll fold it over right where I put the needles. That's where my crease is. And I basically make an identical size second pocket. I will put needles in right along the line of the first pocket and use it as my measurement stick. Let me show you what I'm going to do with the 2 inches of fabric that I left at the top. I'm flipping the whole fabric over, as you see, and I am now folding that section in half and pinning it down. The reason why I'm going to do this is because I want to double the thickness of the fabric at the top, since that will be the section that I will be attaching outside. And I need that to be as sturdy as possible. And again, don't be scared. You could theoretically do this with even fabric glue if you don't have a sewing machine. I'm not doing that because I'm in a very humid climate. I don't know how good that would withstand the test of time. But you see, I'm not using any measurement stick. I'm using the fabric itself as the measurement by just making folds and dividing the fabric basically into thirds, and then again 3/3, etc. Now with the magic of technology, let's go ahead and speed up this process. The first seam I'm going to make is the edge at the very top. I have this back and forth function on my machine, so that really gives it a very nice sturdy start. I remove my pins as I go, and I'm making sure that the fabric is held down nice and straight so that the fabric doesn't slip away and my line get crooked. You see, I'm not even using any type of measurement. As it pertains to where I'm putting my seam, I'm using the little foot on my machine, and I keep it right on the edge of my fabric, so that way the width of that foot becomes my measurement of where I'm putting my seam. After completing this first seam, I move on to making my first pocket. I again do the back and forth method, and that way I have a very nice sturdy start. I do that again where the fabric meets, because that's where the most tear is going to be. And again, back and forth. I remove my needles as I go. And I'm literally just eyeing it. I'm trying to keep it straight as best as possible. I'm using my needles as my guide. At the very bottom, I use the back and forth method once more. That gives it a very nice sturdy end. I'm making a second seam right next to the first one, about 1 centimeter away, which is about the width of that foot that you see right there. I'm doing the exact same way that I did the first one. That will give me a little gap that I can later make a cut on in case I need to stretch the fabric to make it go around corners. Now let's speed this up again. Let me give you a close-up. You see right here? That is enough space for me to make a cut right between these two seams. And at the top, let me show you how the back and forth method on my machine gave me really nice thick seams, and that will really hold up nicely in the weather. Now you just repeat this and however wide you want your pockets to be. I learned that an owner of a bromeliad farm in Bonita Springs, his name is Matt Bagley, uses leaves of palms as the growing medium for his nursery business. Bromeliads is all he's growing, so I'm pretty sure I can copy that, and I have plenty of palm leaves that I can use for this. I did end up adding a little bit of potting soil, a very small amount, and some other dry leaves that I had laying around everywhere. Now let me take you to the location where I'm going to put up these planting pockets. I already planted a few bromeliads just to kind of see how they adapt to the lighting and to the water that they get here.
Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this felt pocket and I'm going to wrap it around the tree and secure it with a washer and a outdoor decking screw.
The tree that I'm using for this project is, I think, a dead tree. There's no leaves growing on it anymore. It was heavily damaged during one of the hurricanes, but it hasn't fallen over, so I figured why not beautify it. Now remember that little gap that I left between the two seams? Right here is where I would make that cut in order to move it up a little bit and get it to wrap around the tree. In this case, I don't think I need it, but I will be using that method later. Once in a while, and you don't have to do this, but I think it will look really pretty to put up some solar string lights. So I put these little hooks into the fabric and a little bit further into the tree. To make the hardware disappear a little bit, I'm spray painting it slightly with a gray spray paint that I have on hand. After I'm done wrapping the fabric all around the tree, I'm now filling these little pockets that I created with the mix of dry leaves, soil, and palm leaves. Bromeliads are actually almost like air plants. They do not need to be buried in soil in order to grow. They get all of their nutrients from the water that they hold in these little cup-shaped leaves that they have. So just giving them something to hold on to a little bit will do. They will not draw a lot of nutrients from this growing medium that I'm creating for them. Now, one thing I noticed at this point of the project, and please learn from this mistake, is that I wrapped the fabric around the tree too tightly. It made it really hard for me to go into the pocket. So when you do this, and I did this correctly on the second wrap, leave a little bit of room, make it loose. You don't have to wrap it around and tie it really, really tight. That way you have a little bit more give on the fabric. The second row of fabric is up as well, and you notice it is a little bit more loose, and you can make as many of these pocket strips as you like.
Now that we have everything set up, we can go ahead and go through the garden and find little pups on the bromeliads that I've planted over the last few years and use those as transplants.
Oyster plants have been doing really well in my backyard, so I think I'm going to take some of those as well. But here's the first one, and you notice there's a little pup on the side. I love the color variations that this plant provides. Another set of bromeliads is under my palm trees. They've multiplied plentiful. We can use some of these. I love that pink, that light pink with the beige and the green, and then here's a darker version with a deep purple mixed in. Bromeliads are not inexpensive, but if you buy one once in a while and allow them to grow and have babies, you'll be able to harvest this amount in no time. And I will be using these pups and transplanting them into the pockets I created for them. I want to give you a close-up of what you'd be expecting when you see these little pups and you separate them from the mother plant. They are just attached with a slight runner, and you can cut that in half. You see the roots are very small. These are actually dry. Again, they don't take up a lot of nutrients with their roots. Now for the really fun part. This is almost like arranging a bouquet of flowers. You just mix match the different varieties, colors, textures, and put them into their new homes. One thing you may notice is that I did make a small cut into the fabric at the top of the pocket for the bigger varieties to kind of give them a little bit sturdier hold. Here at the bottom, I wanted to show you real quick how small these roots actually are. they really do not take up a lot of nutrients, so this is going to be just perfect for them. This is another really good example of how you can separate the plants when they have pups. Do you see how this is attached? All you need to do is just remove the pup from the mother, and this will become a new plant. Here I'm cleaning up the roots just a tad bit, removing dry leaves before putting the bromeliad into its planting pocket. Any pocket that I didn't feel gave the plant a good sturdy foundation, I backfilled with a little bit more of the growing medium. This is where I'm stopping today. These plants will get some water that they can collect in these little cups that they create with their leaves. And as I have more pups throughout the garden, I keep adding. Now let's focus on the bottom of the tree. It had a hole in it, and I'm wondering if there was an animal living in it. There was no movement, so I figured why not use this section as kind of my area for transplanting some oyster plants, which are really taking off very nicely in my garden. And also take some cuttings of other plants that I had that can grow up the tree. Oyster plants propagate through runners, and each runner will grow along the ground and build little roots. So you can simply just grab a few, the roots will be on the stem, and just put them on the ground, cover them a little bit with soil, and they will take off. I've done this multiple times throughout the garden. I actually started off with one plant, and I now have this type of plant all over. This is where I'm leaving off for the day. All plants are in their new home. I'm going to water them in, and later this week I will put some mulch around the area, hang up the string lights, and if you'd like to see how this project is progressing, you may follow me on AB Florida Gardening on Instagram. You can also like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.